Hello, how y'all doing today? This is Ferrante Frazier with another episode of Natural as Elf. Um I am a holistic practitioner here out of Savannah, Georgia, and we are teaching a sound way of health using only the principles of hygiene. And now we're not just hygienists per se as well. We're holistic practitioners now. Holistic has this meaning of being whole body, mind, and soul, right? So today we're going to shift a little bit from talking about the pandemic. We're not talking about any vaccines. We're not going to be talking about any fruits or vegetables. We're not even going to be doing too much talking of exercise. Now, we might incorporate some of those things when we start talking about healing some issues in our body, because what we're going to be talking about is the brain and some function that diminish your capacity to utilize or access your brain, so it makes you suffer in your life. And since we're going to be talking about those things, the brain is it's an organ just like the liver, it's an organ just like the kidneys. So it's subjected to what we eat as well. So you're going to learn more about the neurobiology of belief, and not just, looking at helping health issues by using medication, by using clinical, therapy, reciting metaphysical prayers. We're going to actually show you how, certain areas of your brain may be causing a lot of the issues or suffering that you're suffering from. We want you to hit share right now. We want you to hit like. We want you to go to ATR Media and follow them right now. We want to thank all those producers, all those people who have brought us together to put out this great information that we're sharing to the community. And so we ask that you support us by hitting the like button, by sharing it on your page to a lot of people and letting them know how great these shows that we have putting out to you. So our topic today we're going to be talking about is more love. A lot of us have issues with love, such as with bonding, other issues that we have, and a lot of it develops depression in our life. Those two things, love and depression, is seen in the same area of our brain. That's why you see those two together in our topic today, because they, you'll say, are seen. Those functions are seen in a certain area of our brain that we're going to talk about. And let me explain a little bit about the brain to you before we go deeper into this, because a lot of us are not aware of the brain. Now, some of us are on a computer right now. Some of us are on our cell phones right now, tuning in. Now, let's look at that. Now, that phone or that laptop is hardware, all right? Then you also got software, Windows, different apps and programs and different things like that on your phone and on your laptop. Now, the laptop itself is the hardware, and then you got the software. So your brain is the hardware, and you have the software where you be able to function, think, feel, and all these different activities and processes. But all of them have to deal with the seat of the soul, which is the brain. The brain is the hardware. So you got different parts in the brain. It's really soft. The brain is involved in everything you do, how you think, how you feel, how you act, and how you interact. It's also who you are as a parent, as a child, as a lover, as an employee or employer. All that has to do with your brain. When that brain is acting proper, you act proper. When that brain is not acting proper, then you suffer. There's different areas in your life that's not going to be properly acting if something wrong with that brain, that hardware. If you drop your laptop or the laptop doesn't have any power going to it, same thing with the phone. If you go dropping your phone and you start having issues with it, it's blanking, it's not coming on like you want to. So if the phone is not proper, it's not always the software. Sometimes it's the hardware, and we have to look at the hardware. What good is having great software, but your computer don't come on? What's good is having a good hardware and then the software. So it's a balance in there. This is why we talk about holistic health. But let's explain a little bit about how complex this brain is. And I know you wonder why we're talking about the brain so much, but this is where depression comes in at, and this is where love is expelled or is hindered at. All right. So the brain is the most complex organ. It got 1 billion neurons in it, over 100 billion neurons. You got each nerve cell connected to other cells that helps with how you communicate in your brain. You got over a trillion connections in the brain. More connections than the stars in the universe. Now that's a real complex thing going on. So you have to protect this brain. A healthy brain creates a healthy life. You experience more love into your world. You have less depression, provided that this brain inside of you is protected. So it's a lot of things that we're going to talk about how to protect that brain in such a way where you can function out here in society even better. So if you're having a problem functioning, having problems with how you're living your life, if there's suffering going on, it might be that the brain is not as healthy as you think. We can look at people like Muhammad Ali, who got hit in the brain so many times, and how his functions were thrown off. He had problems walking, all from getting hit in the brain. He had problems with his speech from getting hit in the brain. So a lot of our symptoms of suffering and disease are coming from our damaged brain. And it don't have to be, how some of us say, our brains always have to be damaged from getting hit in it. What we eat can damage our brain. The way that we think constantly with negative thoughts can cause issues in our brain. But the brain is very soft, it's soft like butter. It's in a hard skull, and it has many ridges. So damage can come to our brain real rapidly. Now, we got this one area in our brain. Well, before that, we got many regions in our brain. A lot of the stuff that we're talking about is going to be coming from the Amen clinics and their research on how our brain, with a healthier brain, we can have a greater, healthier life. All right. And we're going to talk about the one that deals with depression and love, which is the deep limbic system in the hypothalamus. I know a lot of y'all heard of the hypothalamus before. but haven't heard about the deep limbic system. Now, the deep limbic system is a part in our brain. It's like it's in the middle. That's why they're calling it the deep, because it's deep down in the middle where the hypothalamus at. It's all that region around there. But it deals with how you perceive love and how you receive love. And we're going to talk about the functions of this deep limbic system. Like you got right here in the front is your prefrontal cortex. A lot of people are familiar with that part of the brain, that prefrontal cortex. And a lot of people are familiar with, the right temporal lobe and the left temporal lobe. They're familiar with the occipital lobe, the parietal lobe, and the cerebellum in the back. So those things are kind of familiar, but when we talk about the deep limbic system, this is a new system to people awareness. So I'm going to help introduce this new system, or this system new to your understanding, new to your understanding, and show you the functions of it. All right. So the functions of the deep limbic system, it sets emotional tone in your mind. So every region in your brain has certain functions. Like your prefrontal cortex helps you with how you judge situation. Your temporal lobes help you with how you relate with other people. Your parietal lobe helps you, your occipital lobe helps you with how your memory and how you, your senses, your taste, and different things of that nature. So every area of your brain has specific function. And when those areas are damaged, they tend not to function properly. So the deep limbic system, it functions by helping set emotional tone. And in your mind, it also filter external events through internal states, like create emotional coloring. It puts the coloring to your mind. It tags events as internally important. If something is not important, then the deep limbic system won't have you bring it up. So it deals with memory. If you have highly charged memory, the deep limbic system is the very thing that's going to help expose it to you. It stores highly charged emotional memory. It modulates motivation. If you don't have motivation, or if you have too much motivation, this is the area of the brain that is either affected. Controls appetite and sleep cycles. If you notice that we talk about the hypothalamus, and a lot of people are familiar about the hypothalamus, so it's going to control our appetites and sleep cycles. So when we having problems in the deep limbic system, we're going to see problems with our appetite. We're going to see problems with sleeping. And this is what we see in depression. Mostly everyone who has depression is going to have these issues of they can't eat, they can't sleep, have no motivation. This is why we're talking about this area. And I'm introducing this area to you because if we're suffering from depression and the lack of love or over bonding with love, it's because this area has been affected. And at the end of this, we're going to talk about ways on how to resolve these issues in the brain. So also we got this deep limbic system. It promotes bonding. It directly processes the sense of smell, and also modulates libido. If you're having problems with interest in sex, or you have too much interest in sex, this is the area that's being affected here again, the deep limbic system. All right, so we're going to consider this deep limbic system and what it can do to help fix a lot of the issues that we have. So like I said, it adds the emotional spice, this deep limbic system, in both a positive way and a negative way. So the deep limbic system is what we're talking about today as functions. We talked about that, and we're going to talk about how it sets the spice of life. In other words, the emotion. It's the part of the brain involved with our emotional tone. Like I said, when it's less active, there is generally a positive coloring that we put on stuff. You know, when our deep limbic system is acting, high, if it's more blood flow to that part of the brain, it's going to have activity going there. As long as activity is going on in your brain, or blood flow is going to your brain, it's going to have good activity. Now, if it have too much activity, we're going to have too much going on, overactivity. We're going to have like a negative overtone on how we see situation. All right. So let's look at the emotional shading, and it's how it interprets our day. Like, say for example, if our deep limbic system is gray or overactive, our tone for the day is going to be like in a negative situation. Now, let me explain that even more deeper, because I know I'm sounding really scientific on how I'm talking about this brain area, and you're wondering what that got to do with why I saw my whole day as being negative. Everything that I did all day was just negative. I didn't see no happiness in nothing that I did today. The way I drove home, it was just a terrible ride. The way that my phone call was with my daughter was always it was just destructive. It just just have us just looking at it, everything is negative. All right, so it sets our tone. If we have problems in this deep limbic system, it colors the events depending on our emotional state. If our emotional state is toxic, then it's going to color every part of our day as being toxic. So it's ideal that we control that deep limbic system. Instead of me saying the deep limbic system, I'm going to just say the DL. The DL. Some people tend to know the DL as being on the down low. But here on the down low, we're going to be talking about how we're creating a lot of our own suffering and our own issues by not having proper brain functioning. So if we can correct our brain, we can correct our life. All right. When you are sad, with an overactive deep limbic system or DL system, you are likely to interpret neutral events through a negative filter. Let's say, for example, you're having a conversation with someone whose DL system is overactive or negatively set. That person is usually going to see that conversation as negative. If you always around somebody that always have this negative tone, no matter what you say, they're going to turn this positive into a negative. That's an individual who's suffering from a DL situation. And if you're that person, you can become aware of how your DL system or your deep limbic system is overactive. Notice when you're having these thoughts of grouchiness, just being just always with, no, this can't happen, like pessimistic about everything. When this part of the brain is cool or functions properly, you have a positive interpretation of events in your life. It's more positive. You're able to go with the flow of things. But when that system is not right, you tend to be just negative. All right. So it's very important that we control and fix the issues in our DL system. I know some of us already ready to say, hey, what can I do to fix that problem? Because you're going to see you having problems in motivation if you're depressed. And we're going to talk about some situations in just a minute about this DL system, like with PMS. And a lot of women is going to understand even more what I'm talking about from just PMS itself, because a lot of women show signs of depression, have these issues with bonding and different things, all dealing with this, the situation that they suffer from, which is PMS, something that comes on once a month for them. It was a question that we had up here. If you want to put that question back up there, and we can address that before we go into the PMS. All things relevant say that's why I act the way I act, because my brain is healthy. Hello, Erica. How you doing today? That's my sister. For those who don't know, it's my beautiful sister. She's doing a lot to, for the community. And I see my nephew up here too. I want to thank y'all, and please share this information with a lot of people where we can develop healthier brains in the world. Because think about it. Brains run this world. Brains run the hospital. Brains run the presidency. We can see that some people have some damaged brains from what we have going on in the world right now. We got brains who operate at banks. We got brains. We don't have, just regular people. We got brains. The healthier these people brains are, the healthier our world going to become. So we want to teach our community how to have a healthier, happier brain. We want less depression, and we want more love into the world. All right, so let's get back into this. We want to thank all those who tuning in. Please share, like, and follow us on ATR Media. But as we mentioned in a lot of, earlier about this PMS, within 5 to 10 days, we know some women, prior to them having PMS, they tend to become grouchy because this area of their brain become more activity going on in the brain. More blood is flowing to that part of the brain for them to go through that period of their menstrual cycle. So by them going through the menstrual cycle, it's more blood flowing into the deep limbic system. All right, and this means that they're going to have a drop in hormones, a drop in serotonin. So that's why they tend to become more grouchy at the beginning. And most men, they can relate to what we're talking about, saying, "Oh man, your menstrual cycle must be about to come on because you're just acting terrible, you're acting mean, you're acting vile." So at the beginning of this, they're having these low serotonin levels in their body, and it's creating this grouchiness, this negative tone. And so they're going to have a negative tone on everything. You just can't fix nothing. The way the children are making the bed is going to cause them to get mad. The way that you cook the food, everything that you're doing is going to have a negative tone with some people when they're going through their early stages of PMS. But once the cycle come on, you see a totally different person. When the actual cycle is on, you're going to see a different change because you're back to positive, you're back to being loved, you're being more affectionate now, because you have more of the serotonin being sent back to your body and not being taken out for this process of cleansing. So you're going to feel way happier if you can keep up your levels of serotonin. And we're going to talk about all that in a minute as well. But a lot of y'all women are understanding now, like, wow, why do I have these issues during that, first part of this PMS? Now, also, if you have been traumatized by a dramatic event, such as being in a car accident, or a parent, or watching your house burn down, or abused by a parent or spouse, or the emotional component of the memory is stored in that deep limbic system. So if you had some type of traumatic experience, I don't care what that traumatic experience is. If you had rape going on, if you've been embarrassed when you were young in school because you urinated on yourself in the lunchroom in front of a whole bunch of people, or you've been in a fight and your whole body became nude because you was exposed because somebody ripped off your clothes. Whatever the issue, whatever the traumatic experience is, this is stored in this area of the brain. So that means when you're having issues in there, it's going to be highlighted. It's going to be highlighted, and you're going to, if that was a bad situation, if that situation is a really bad situation, then think about when you having a bad situation in your day. or when you have overactivity in there, that's what's going to come back up. That's gonna come back up, and it's gonna cloud and give color to everything happening to you that day. So if you had a traumatic past, you're going to constantly judge everything on that traumatic past. You notice how some people keep bringing up the same old past situations in their life, and you saying, why are you still acting as if that happened to you today, or that I did that to you? So they're going to judge you and base you on memories from their past, memories of their traumatic experiences. And we tend to do the same thing. So that's the thing I'm telling you to do, is become aware of how you're creating the depression in your life from your deep limbic system. It can really affect us in so many ways. So the deep limbic system also affects our motivation and our drive. Now, this is how you're going to see a lot of depression coming on, because if it affects our emotional tone, and our emotional tone, the things that, because most times when depression is things that we're depressed over about our past. We get caught up on negative thoughts that just keep going over and over of our past, or we have anxiety of the future. Those are what makes us depressed. We're depressed about, I have no control over, me being able to pay my bills, what my future is going to look like. That causes depression when you have these, especially when it's a negative tone. If you're always having these negative thoughts that's set around, you're going to be a failure, or you're not going to amount to anything, or you're never going to be able to pay your bills. You're never going to have someone who love you. Those are going to, if those came from the way that your mother told you something, or some traumatic experience from the past, then you're going to set everything with that tone. That's where healing need to come at. Everything is going to be set around that tone of you operating from, I'm not going to amount to anything, so why even try? So you want to make sure that you protect your fragile brain. That's why we're talking about, it's not always just the software. We got to protect the brain. If it's not operating properly, because there's no blood flow going there, because it done hardened from overusage of drugs, the way we're eating toxic food that goes through the BBB barrier and allow irritation in our brain, getting hit in your brain, fighting one another, family members who, like husband and wives who fight each other, and especially hitting each other in the brain. It affects that person and how they're going to relate. Like I told you, Muhammad Ali, after getting hit in the brain, it affects his life. So imagine when we're boxing people in the head. That's why we got to show more love, and less harm out here, and protect our brain from beating ourselves in the head when we're eating the wrong stuff, drinking the wrong stuff, the use of drugs, the use of even these medications, these herbs and supplements. All those things, our brain is affected to everything that we put in our body. When we're not breathing fresh air and we're breathing incense, we're breathing cologne, we're breathing all these toxic air pollutants. Those things affect and irritate the brain. We call it stimulate. Stimulate my mind, Craig. Let me stimulate your mind, Craig. But stimulation is another word for irritation. All right. So irritation to that brain causes inflammation. Any inflammation in any area alters that function in that brain. So let's repeat that. Any irritation that goes to the brain, or stimulation, it irritates that brain to inflammation. All right. So it makes that part of the brain become inflamed. Now, more oxygen or more blood to that area, which is inflammation, that meaning more blood going to that part of the brain. More blood is like putting the pedal to the metal. So less blood to the brain, that's less motivation, that's less activity. So the less the blood flows to that part of the brain, the less activity is going to go on in that part of the brain. The more blood going to that part of the brain, there's going to be more activity. All right. Now that activity might not be good activity because if it's not always, when you get more stimulation there, you're going to get better actions. We see that when people use drugs and you get bad behavior from them. You don't see them get better by using drugs. You actually see a worse situation. But let's look at the motivation. Overactivity in our DL system is associated with lowered motivation and lowered drive, depression, especially in the hypothalamus, which controls our sleep and our appetite cycle. Healthy sleep and appetite are essential for maintaining a proper balance in your life and in your health. But both of these are components that suffer when we have problems or abnormalities in our deep limbic system. So when our deep limbic system is suffering or abused or has been traumatized by our eating, by our drinking, we tend to have problems with sleep. We tend to have problems with appetite. Now, is these some things that you notice in depression now? Do you notice in your life sometimes when you're depressed, you just can't eat? Notice that when people are having a funeral. I noticed that somebody were making mention about in one of my classes where he was saying that everybody got sick when they had a funeral going on. Everybody was sick at the funeral. But what's going on? We just had some loss here. Everybody, when they get together at a funeral, what they're doing, they're eating. They're eating a bunch of food. They're, get on their favorite drug because they all coming together. Everybody got their favorite bottle, so people are turning up. They're celebrating the life of the individual who just left. So these people in their mourning, they're stressed. They just had this you'll say bonding snatched away, and that's something we're going to talk when we get to bonding. But this is just happening, and these people are wondering why they're getting sick. You're eating under a situation where food can't digest. The body don't even want to eat, but we're forcing ourselves to put food in us. Notice that those people, you have to tell those people when they just lost a loved one to, you should get something to eat. You haven't eaten in days, but you're just not hungry. I just don't have any appetite. Those people are up, they just can't sleep. So we know that depression it affects our eating. It affects our sleep cycle. So if we're having these problems with appetite, if we're having problems with sleeping, it may mean that we have a mild depression, or it may be severe. According to our symptoms, if those symptoms are magnified, if you can't eat for days, no matter what, if you can't sleep at all, then you're going to have a severe problem. If you have this little periods of not eating, not low sex drive and moves and different things like that, that's going to show a form of depression. It might be mild. And I'm going to tell you right now, if there's any type of depression you're going through, there's help. Don't just listen to what I'm saying up here, even just the resolution. Some people cannot fix this thing on their own. And there's people out here who are qualified to help you go through it. If you have to find someone who's going to help you go through that problem, I tell you, by all means, find somebody. There's help out here. The depression hotline. Get with some church members, some pastors. They're counselors. They can help pull you out of the funk. We'll call it a funk. And by all means, find someone who's going to teach you how to eat right to protect your brain, to feed your brain properly, to hydrate your brain properly. Make sure that your brain get quality air, because we can suffocate our brain by the toxic fumes that we got around it. We can start hallucinating from our toxic environments, inhalation. All right. So it's all about protecting this brain. All right, the deep limbic system, it directly processes what even smell. And this is the only sense out of all our five senses that goes straight from the nose to the brain, the deep limbic system. Every other sense, like touch, taste, those have to go to relay stations first before they are sent to the brain. But smell, oh man, smell is processed instantaneously. And the deep limbic system is the area of the brain that deals with smell, that processes the sense of smell. So beautiful smells give us a pleasant feeling and draw people towards you. But unpleasant smells tend to make people, hey, man, get away from me. You notice that women, they don't walk up on guys who funk. They functified. They don't just want to be around them, but that guy who got that cool breeze or got that Axe sprayed on them, that smell. And women men like to smell a good smelling woman. We don't want to smell toe jams and other funk coming off them. It's a stench that just repels us to stay away from you. You don't. That's not sexy. You don't want to make love with a woman who smell like some old rotted onions or anything like that. But one that is clean tends to provoke a love in you. Make you feel good. So we even see that because it deals in that deep limbic system. This deep limbic system is a really area that we have to pay attention to. So even in bonding, so bonding, smell, sexuality, and deep limbic systems are connected. They're connected with each other. Sexual smells cool the limbic system and intensify our moods for love. We can't even look at an orgasm. Orgasm has been described as a mini seizure on our brain. It's like going through a little mini seizure, shaking and all type of stuff like that. A lot of people don't realize that you're going through a mini seizure every time you have this orgasm after sex. But this is in the deep limbic system, and it tends to release or lessen the activity. So sex, and a lot of people, I don't want you to overindulge in sex, but sex actually helps cool down the deep limbic system. A person feel calm and relaxed after, getting one off their chest, they say. But to get this off, get one off my chest, it kind of calms and relaxes. But before that, you see them overactive, they be hyper and different things of that nature. So sexuality is good for bonding in human brains. But that's the thing that we have to pay attention to as well, because if sex helps with bonding in the brain, casual sex is not a good thing to do, because you're going to bond eventually with the sex, and then because the deep limbic system is an area that is bigger in women. Women have larger deep limbic system. This is due to them having to be the nurturers of the world. Men, we're not going to have these big deep limbic system. Our deep limbic system ain't as big as women. So we don't bond and we're not nurturing as women are. So we can casually have sex and don't bond and attach ourselves to women, where women or the female counterpart is going to have more bonding because they have a bigger deep limbic system, or a big DL system. Now, let's see why nature provided a woman with a greater DL system. Her DL system is going to be bigger because, she's the one that takes care of the kids. She's got to be able to smell her kids, and be able to nurture. We can't be nurturing no kids, not no man. We can't have feelings and emotions. Our emotional tone got to be one that is not that good, because we got to go out there and kill a bear with our bare hands to feed our, family. We got to go out there and do things that requires us to not have emotion. So our deep limbic system is limited. But women have a larger deep limbic system because they're the nurturer. So they tend to have more emotions or show more emotion than men. And that's something that we need to, understand. So we do see men as being hunters and women as being the nurturers of the world. And this is a good thing. But we even see when this is another way to show you how the deep limbic system plays in our activity. Women, on the other hand, by them having a bigger deep limbic system, because you have men and women who try to commit suicide, but for the most part, women don't succeed in committing suicide. But a man, he's going to pretty much fall through with him committing suicide. Notice that when women commit suicide, they commit suicide by taking pills or something of that nature. But a man, he's going to hang himself or shoot himself. So it's not where he's going to. And this is why we see this in depression. If we can control that depression, we're going to see more damage in men when they become depressed. As in women, they don't want to really hurt themselves. They want attention. Their emotions are more, going to be flying a little harder than men. We're just going to go for the gusto, and that's not a good thing. But yeah, women attempt suicide 3 times more often than men. But the men do. Our attempts are more successful than the women because we use more violent means, where women are not going to use a real violent mean. We're shooting, hang ourselves, like I said, quick. And women, they're just going to, possibly take some pills, slit their wrists in time to get help. They can get help from something like that. There's no help hanging yourself. It's quick. Shooting yourself in the head, that's quick. So there's a difference in that. Especially in our hypothalamus, it's being at the base of our brain. It deals with our emotional state and physical feelings, relaxation, or any type of tension. The back of our head, it sends stimulation of fear. All right. So the back of our hypothalamus, it sends out signals of fear. All right. So anytime that it's overactive, it's going to send out fear. It's going to put us in our fight or flight response. And if a lot of us don't know what the fight or flight response is, it's a way to help us deal with survival. Anytime that something is threatful or fearful to us, it's going to put us in a state of fight or flight. It helps us to be able to fight, to defend ourselves, or to run to escape danger. So we either going to fight, or we going to run, flight, catch flight, to protect ourselves from any threats. Now, imagine if there's no threat. It's only in our mind because our hypothalamus is sending these signals of fear. It keeps the adrenaline running in our body. You see people always in this panic, even when they're depressed. They're in they have heightened heartbeats, heart palpitation. They're going through modes of sweat and different things. All the stomach. You can't eat when you're about to fight. You don't see nobody want to sit down to a meal while they out there, knucking with somebody. Or if they are running, trying to get away, fighting with a bear behind you, you're not going to want to sit there and want to, be up under some type of meal. If you're running from a bear that's gnawing behind you, So when you're in that state, you're not going to be able to eat. You're not going to be able to have that situation. So if we're eating and we're in that state, but there's no bear chasing us, there's nobody we're fighting. We're fighting our own mind, because we have this fear going on, fear of loss, fear of not having enough money to pay my bill, fear that this person don't love me, the fear that the government put on us, do I have this disease? Am I going to get the virus? Oh my God, So we're creating fear, and this fear is creating a fight or flight response that is weakening our body. It's destroying our brain, and it's weakening our immune system. And we're steady trying to eat, we're steady trying to live, even though we're in these sicking states of being. And that's why we're producing a lot of the suffering that we have. So the hearts beat faster up under those things. So the deep limbic system is very important with our emotion. So we got to control that emotion. Now, problems in the deep limbic system, you have moodiness, irritability, you have clinical depression, you have increased negative thinking, you have decreased motivation. These things that we see in depression. You know, when you have negative perception of events, no matter what's happening in your world, it's negative. You know, riding in the car, you know, why do we have to have cars? This is just not healthy. Or we just put a negative tone around everything. Our appetite and sleep problem, decrease or increase sexual responsiveness, or we have social isolation. Since the deep limbic system affects motivation, people sometimes develop the "I don't care" mindset, or the attitude in life, and at work. They just don't have the energy to care, because they feel hopeless about the outcome. Why should I even try? Why should I even put forth action? It's not going to come out right. It never comes out right. So you already got this pre-notion that it's not going to come out right, because your deep limbic system is setting the coloring. It's setting the emotional tone, because you got some charged memories of how that woman did you. So why should I get into another relationship with another woman? Because it's not going to turn out right. Why should I go and get a job? I'm going to get fired, or they're not going to like the way I do things. So we have to heal our deep limbic system if we want to have better bonding, better relationships, better situations, and healthier outcomes in our lives. So we look at those three problems of bonding, like we said about postpartum depression. You have these women who, once they have bonding issues, even with their kids, when they're bringing kids into life, they end up with this thing called postpartum depression or psychosis when they are taken away from their kids real rapidly. We see this even in death, like the death of a child. And I've even seen it personally in the life in my family, where we had death in the family, and the mother of the child suffered a form of depression by the child being rapidly snatched away from them. They had a bond with these kids. And this is on a chemical level, because the deep limbic system, like I said, it helps you deal, it sets your emotions, so you have this bonding, this is a chemical bonding, like how in sex, when these two people, the more they have this sexual encounter, this deep limbic bonding takes on. So the more you spend time with people and live with them and eat with them and different things, you create a bond. This is a deep limbic bond. So to have them snatched away in the form of death, in the form of them just leaving, like in divorce, would you see with couples, children who leave, you get the empty nest syndrome in some women. So all those things are breaking away bonds that are affecting the deep limbic system, and they can produce depression. You see people who the bond of divorce, people can't eat when they're going through divorce. It makes them sick. They're suffering the death. You see people sick and suffering. Some women going through the empty nest syndrome. You see them sick and suffering. Postpartum, you see them sick and suffering. They can't sleep. They can't eat. All this is the depression going on. And all this is because it's affecting the deep limbic system. right? The DL system. This is something you're going to be talking about a lot. Hey, man, what's going on with your DL? We got to tighten up on the DL. But we even noticed that, losing money, people who, tend to bond with money. Your bond don't have to be people per se, animals, cars. The part from anything that you built the bond with is going to, you got a highly emotional charge with, you're going to have a depression if that thing is snatched away from you. If it is pulled away from you, it's going to give you a form of depression, and you'll start noticing it in your life. So lack of bonding and depression are often related. People who are depressed often do not feel like being around others. And we tend to isolate ourselves when we're going through depression, and that makes us more depressed. And then when we become more depressed, we tend to, stay away from even more people. And then we become even more depressed. So it's like it's a self-fulfilling prophecy and cycle that we create for ourselves when we become depressed. That's why I say, if you're depressed or feel any of these things that I'm talking about right now, get help. Don't allow yourself to go deeper in depression or think that you're alone. There's people out here that know how to help bring you out of there, and they know what you're going through. They can give you the love that you need to bring that back up. And that's one of the correct things, how to heal the deep limbic system. A lot of us, we tend to go after drugs to boost and stimulate our low active deep limbic system. Because when you have a low activity in that deep limbic system, you tend to feel more depressed and sickness. But what if you can bring that up a little bit? You can bring that up with, we would drug ourselves with using stuff like cocaine that stimulates the deep limbic system. But we notice that love can actually create more energy and more activity in the deep limbic system than any hit of cocaine. You done seen some people who've been in love for the first time, or I know some individuals who experiencing love that got them on a high bigger than any crack cocaine or hit of cocaine or whatever. They can be just high for life or high for love. You see them, you be out there like, this. They don't see us or can't see nobody, but they love relationship right now. And it heals them. It got them way they back. They're feeling good. They sleeping better. They're eating better. But when they were divorced and didn't have anybody, they were slim. They was falling off. They were suffering. But when love came back in their life, we see this with animals. The children. When the children of the animals, if they neglect them, they didn't fare well. But those who, are around, and we see this with even humans, those who don't have any bonding from their parents, they tend to suffer. They tend to be sick. But those who get good bonding from their parents, they tend to fare well and they develop well. So love it can heal a lot of things. It can heal a lot of situations. So we need to learn how to love and put out love more rapidly. Now, this is going to be, we almost about to wrap this thing up because we got about 7 minutes left. It's just not enough time to really hit on something as big as this love and depression. But like I said, if you are depressed and you have any of these issues that we're talking about here, we want you to get help, seek help. And depression goes unnoticed in our community more than others, because if I see, other races, they seek out help. They tend to carry their family and get help. They don't mind going to a psychiatrist. They don't mind going to these people and working on their situation. But in the Black community, we just want to beat that devil out of them, man. That's a devil in them. Let's beat it out of them. I don't know why they acting like this. Something wrong with them. Or we'll throw them off as just, as a defect. And we don't realize that their disease, they're suffering. We wouldn't do that to a person who was suffering with cancer. We have compassion on them. If a person was suffering with tumors and other issues in their body, we have compassion on them. So depression is a disease as well that need to be looked at and have compassion on. Get help for them. They're suffering, even if they're not aware. And this is the one that's in the brain. A brain one, we need to have other people help bring them into, health. So be aware if someone around you is depressed and help them get help, even if they can't help themselves. So not only if you're feeling these issues, get help, but if you know of anyone dealing with this, you can help them overcome their depression. So get help. There's help out here. There's help out here. All right. So with that being said, we're gonna start wrapping this up. We're gonna talk a little bit about killing ants because we got like 5 minutes left. I'm gonna introduce you to this thing called ants. Ants are automatic negative thoughts. We want to we want to kill the ants. All right. If you was at a picnic and you had a bunch of food there and y'all sitting out there having a good time out there at the picnic, and one ant come on your picnic blanket, you're not going to too much worry about it. But if you allow him to get some food and carry it back to his mouth, it's going to be a stream of ants coming, and you're going to see them just overtaking your food. So ants are automatic negative thoughts. If you have one of them come into your world, you want to squash that ant. Because if you let that ant continuously go over, if you have these negative thoughts going on in your life, then it's going to produce a stream of negative thoughts. And a stream of negative thoughts become your emotional tone. That negative thoughts become how you give color to everything. So you're going to paint everything as a negative tone. So kill the ants. You got different types of ants that happen. There are actually 9 of them that we talk about. Those 9 ants you're going to have are, the first one is the always never thinking ant. Then you're going to have the focusing on the negative. You're going to have mind reading. A lot of us think that we can read minds. We tend to think we know what the other person is thinking and we act on that behavior. Thinking with your feelings. I think that, this is, or I feel stupid. I feel like a failure. That's talking and thinking from your emotions. Labeling. We tend to give labels to stuff. He's a jerk. My boss is he's just crazy. So we tend to give label to things. So we got to kill that labeling things. To see people as people. See them as you being in that person. Personalizing, taking things personal. My boss didn't talk to me today. I guess he didn't like me or he got a problem with me. You don't know what's going on. You probably have indigestion. Who knows? But if you're taking another person's actions personally, then you're personalizing. That's an ant that we need to kill. And the most poisonous of all ants are the blame. If we blame others for how our life going or issues, then we take away our ability to control it. Because if we blaming them for it, then they're the one that can only fix it. So we take away our responsibility and our ability to solve issues when we put the blame on others. So blaming is definitely one of those things that will, be an ant that we need to squash. So it's going to be ideal to squash these ants. Get them out of your life. Kill the ant population. Stop them from taking over your picnic. Okay. So I want to tell y'all, thank y'all for giving me a chance to explore this concept of hygiene and natural health with helping us get over depression, love. Like I said, this is just a introductory. We're going to build on this even more and different things about holistic health as we further go on in our teachings of this and us being on this show, Natural is Health. I want to thank all those who support us. Please share and let other people know that we're on air every Tuesday at 6 o'clock. And just support us, hit like, follow every Tuesday, Natural is Health. All right, we're going to start allowing ourselves to heal in more of a natural way. Get ready for the Alicia Blakely show coming up next. So stay tuned. She got a lot of good stuff to say. We want to thank y'all. Just thank y'all so much. It's been a blessing being able to talk to y'all. I am thankful, and I wish you a great week, and I'll see you next week.